Hello, this is Pastor Sidney of the All Faith Liberation Church in Chicago. I have come to, I was talking to a friend of mine in the church earlier today, and we got into the discussion of this particular passage that I have found, and with the blessing of friends of my friend in the church and other friends in the church, I feel emboldened to tell you this. Although I think that in our contemporary climate, it could be taken wrong. Understand, Jesus was always saying, "Suffer the children unto me, bring the children unto me." He was not a man who would ever hurt children. He was not a person who was ever seen hurting children, even raising his voice really to children. He was a very kind, loving man. Nonetheless, the title of this, how does Jesus think of pederasts and molesters and people like that? Well, I take as my text Matthew 8, 5 through 13, and we'll talk about it. And when Jesus was entered into Capernaum, there came unto him a centurion, beseeching him, and saying, Lord, my servant lieth at home, sick of the palsy, grievously tormented. And Jesus saith unto him, I will come and heal him. The centurion answered and said, Lord, I am not worthy that thou shouldest come under my roof, but speak the word only, and my servant shall be healed. For I am a man under authority, having soldiers under me. And I say to this man, Go, and he goeth, and to another, Come, and he cometh, and to my servant, Do this, and he doeth it. When Jesus heard it, he marveled, and said to them that followed, Verily I say unto you, I have not found so great faith, no, not in Israel. And I say unto you, that many shall come from the east and west, and shall sit down with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob in the kingdom of heaven. But the children of the kingdom shall be cast out into the outer darkness. There shall be weeping and a gnashing of teeth. And Jesus said unto the centurion, Go thy way, and as thou hast believed, so be it done unto thee. And his servant was healed in the selfsame hour. Understand something. A man of the Roman way of being sexual, they didn't have the same kind of morality that, whether gay or straight, we all seem and should have in our culture around the world, which respects the young, in other words, doesn't get them involved in anything relational until people are of age, until people are at least 18 or 21 or however old. Other countries have even higher ages of consent. You are not to mess with consent. But the Roman, especially in that verse, he said, I command, I tell them go and they go. I tell them come, I say my servant do this and they do it. Now this man was so afraid to lose his little servant that he had the palsy and was going through the pain of that, that he would seek out a person from the country he's conquered, because he was so desperate for healing. What kind of man would do that for a person who just cleans the floor? This was a very special servant to him, in the kind of way that in the tradition of the philosophers, the gymnasiums of ancient Greece and Rome. These were places where older people would, by our standards, have molested the children, using their power of age in a kind of way that we would definitely consider to be very negative. Well, Jesus also was raised in a culture that didn't really appreciate that kind of thing, whether it between same-sex people or between young and old or between power and unpowered people, slaves and masters. He would have found that, as we would have found that, to be a very, very hard thing to accept. Yet he goes and even offers to go into the Roman's house to save his boy. What does that tell us? Does that mean that Jesus is on the side of that kind of thing, on the side of, unconsensual relationships between people? No. But it did mean that he had a heart that was bigger than his culture, a heart that was bigger than even his own repulsion, because he was moved by the faith of this man, who when he was going through problems with other people of his own country not believing in him, here's this foreign man, this occupier, this man he shouldn't even be talking to, begging him, please, Rabbi, help me and my little servant at home. What does this tell us? I think this tells us something very simple. We are commanded by God to be accepting of each other, even when we're very different, even when we feel very much that the other person's in sin. If we are not able not only to love someone different than us, but to try to put ourselves in their shoes like Jesus did, then we are failed. We have failed. And we then become part of what was promised. There'll be a terrible time of tribulation and gnashing of teeth. And the whole world, the whole nation will suffer for this. This is why we simultaneously have a God that is commanding us, Jesus is commanding us to be very kind to people, even people we consider to be sinners. But also, there is the other side of it. That's the carrot. The stick is God will judge us all if we judge each other. Because as much as we've been judged and we judge each other, then we will be judged. And as much as, a lot of people will make this argument that the Democratic Party are a bunch of groomers and a bunch of pederasts. And then the Democrats will look at Republicans and say, you're a bunch of racists, you're a bunch of sexists, you're a bunch of, oppressors. Well, what we are called to do is not fall into that this versus that condemnation stuff. If Jesus himself could show such a big heart that he would try to bless someone who is almost by anybody's definition in our world in a sinful relationship with someone too young, then how much more can we be loving of people who are different, but respect those laws, or are different, and love people who are consenting of age? How much more are we called to not judge each other for the differences we have? I hope you take this in the spirit it was intended and understand that Jesus has no place for anything cruel to children, but he also has no place for those who judge anyone, even those who have done wrong. God bless you.